Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Crusty Conversations here on the Geckoverse podcast channel. I'm your host, Josh Brown, with Georgia Cresties, and this week we're going to be getting into collaborations in the gecko world, what that looks like, how to navigate them to make sure that you and your geckos are safe when doing a collaboration. Now, last time on the podcast, we talked about tips and tricks to calm down your crested gecko. So, if you have a wild gecko or you're just wanting to have a more friendly crested gecko, go check out that video and get started on calming that gecko down. All right? Now, thank you all for your patience with me. I've had a lot going on recently. Haven't been feeling too good, but trying to get over that and push through. Um, and I wanted to come live tonight and see how y'all are doing. So, without further ado, let's talk about collaborations. So, what is a collaboration to begin with? So, generally, people see collaborations in the gecko world as two breeders coming together to pair their geckos to get more geckos out of it. Now, the reason why that's really good, whether you're a new breeder or you've been doing this for years, is because everyone needs more geckos. Sometimes you don't have the money for it or the resources to do it, or you just see someone's gecko and you're like, I really want to pair that gecko with mine. And I think that would make really, really great kids and everything. But you have to be very precautious when you are doing that, okay? Um, Collaborations are a great tool to get ahead in the reptile world and the gecko world, and it's a cheaper alternative, or it can be, depending on how you work the collaboration. The so yeah, you'll build your collection. Oh, and you'll get different bloodlines as well. That's an issue that I'm about to run into probably in the next year or so, because a lot of the geckos that I have, well, they're going into different projects and stuff. So of course, I'm not inbreeding at all, but I am have a lot of kids and grandkids now from like the same original geckos. So getting into collaborations helps you diversify bloodlines as well as getting you new geckos. So the most important thing in when starting a collaboration is trust. Okay? You have to make sure you 100% trust the person that you're doing the collaboration with. All right? Without trust and full transparency, the collaboration is not going to work. Okay? uh, you have to know the person that you're sending your gecko to, or that you're getting their gecko to take care of. It's a big responsibility to take care of someone else's gecko, make sure that they're living fine and that you breed them correctly. And it's also a huge responsibility and trust to send your gecko to someone for like a year or so to breed and have babies. There's many different ways to go about collaborations. I will get to that in a few minutes, but as I was saying, you have to trust the person that you're getting into a collaboration with, and so that you can work together to come to a common goal of creating better crested geckos. Not just, oh, I just getting all these animals, you're creating a better, higher quality, healthier crested gecko. That should always be the goal when you're breeding, is to create better crested geckos, healthier, more coverage, better pattern, better structure. That should always be the goal when you're breeding crested geckos. Um, Going back to trust, you have to know these people that you're sending your gecko to, because you want your gecko back, right? I know I do. So you have to trust wholeheartedly. I personally would get references and from people say, hey, who have you done collaborations with before? Or even people just go on their following, people that interact with them a lot, or just go through, see people who have worked with them before, bought geckos from them before, and see if this person's really trustworthy, how they treat their geckos, how they keep their geckos. I also like to I will request, not like to, I will request to get a video of how they have all of their setups, how they treat their geckos, how they feed them, the temperament of the gecko. Because again, I don't breed crazy geckos together. I don't want that possibly transferring to the kids. So you have to know their whole operation as well as yours. I know you'll be confident in your operation, what you've got going on, but again, you have to trust that the other person is always going to do the right thing, and that doesn't always happen in the gecko world. So, a lot of times, or I've heard of instances before where people will be like, "Oh yeah, I'll take this gecko and I'll breed them," but they end up breeding multiple geckos. Like, so I never like they'll breed one male. The male that you send them, they'll breed it with several other of their females and not tell them. And that's just not right, in my opinion. So my rule of thumb is the female always travels. No matter what it is, the female always travels unless it's you taking it or you're personally going to take it in and you have just 100% trust. You've known these people for years. You're confident that they're not going to. But I personally always send the gecko first. Let's see what Clint has to say. Hey man, I'm collaborating at work, listening as I can. Had to hit the like and of course kick it. What's up, Clint? It's good to see you. Thank you for joining. How was your trip recently? I saw that on Instagram. It looked like you were having a lot of fun. I'm jealous. I wish I could travel a little bit more, but that doesn't happen right now. But I'm glad it looked like you and your family had a lot of fun. Um, so again, you have to know what they're working with. You have to be able to fully trust them and to know that you're going to get your gecko back and that they're not running off and breeding a bunch of other geckos with yours. It was a blast, bro. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad you were able to get away for a little bit and relax with the family and have some fun. That's really cool, dude. But so again, you have to, like I said, get references so you know what you're working with. Trust the people that you're working with, and that's the biggest thing. You always have to have an open line of communication. So I will be going over one of my contracts later on how I do contracts for collaborations, and you have to stick to what that contract says just because like you don't you could potentially end up suing the person if they don't do it, whatever. You don't want that to happen, but you have a contract in place just in case anything can happen, and in that contract you want to cover everything that could possibly happen and hopefully it will never happen, but of course you have to prepare for the worst and just be prepared, of course, like a boy scout. Be prepared. um, and so that's why you have the contract to keep everyone accountable for what is going on. So let me go over. So for collaborations, typically, like I said, I send the female over, or they'll send the female to me, and I will have a, of course, a what do you call it? A period of time, like the 1 month quarantine. There you go, the quarantine period, so that you know that you can be sure that that gecko doesn't have anything and that your gecko doesn't have anything, to make sure that when they're breeding, no pests or diseases or whatever is being transmitted between the geckos. You don't want that. So again, health, very very important in the gecko world. 1 second. So yeah, typically I'll have I'll send the gecko over earlier in the season, so probably around like January or February. I would send the gecko over to them so they can start the quarantine period, and so that they can go ahead and start breeding. Like I said before, when you what I have seen is when you breed crested geckos earlier in the season, February, March, April, you get more males. And then when you breed later in the season, May, June, July, whatever, you get more females. That's not proven or anything, but that's just what I've seen in the past 5 years when I've bred earlier and later. So if you're looking for more males or females, adjust your breeding seasons accordingly. But so again, in my contracts, I have you will be sending the gecko over quarantine period, and you have to. I always record every visitation or every meeting of the geckos. Let me actually go over to my contract so we can all see what is going on here. Okay, give me 1 second. There we go. Can y'all can you see that? Can anyone comment and say if they see my inbox chat? I believe so. Hold on. There we go. Can y'all see it now? So this is what my contracts look like for breeding. So this is one I did with Olivia Burkholz at Unreal Exotics. This was my first. This was my first uh, breeding loan contract that I did, and that was with My Scarlet, the lavender uh, extreme harlequin, and she was bred to Olivia's Steel, a tricolor lily white, and that's how I got Heisenberg and Peaches and Sunshine. So those were the three geckos that I got to keep out of that. So what I do here is going. You see at the start, contract name is for gecko name for the male, who is currently at whatever grams, and the female, whoever that belongs to. The male and female gecko will be paired together as soon as the female completes the 1 month quarantine, like I said. Um, so then you go into the contract lengths. So this contract is for the entire duration of 2025, is outlining that the female gecko will be sent home as soon as the last clutch of eggs hatch and reach 5 grams. You don't have to do that, but I usually like to do that because you get a good sense of what all of the kids will look like, or and not as soon as they hatch. Oh, just give it to me right now. Um, I like to wait until at least 5 grams because, of course, I don't want to have to ship them anything less than 5 grams, and it's just better traveling. And just the rule of thumb, you don't want to sell a gecko under 5 grams. So I don't want to trade geckos or whatever, exchange geckos under 5 grams. And that also, like I said, gives you a better look at what the geckos could possibly look like. So the person holding the geckos will provide monthly updates of all of the babies, pictures, and weight. Typically, I like to do like every other week just to make sure, keep everyone honest, make sure all of my geckos are doing well, and just to know what they look like. I love to know the health and condition of my geckos. I know, crazy, right? But so I want to know what's going on with my gecko. Now, the more you trust that person, obviously you can increase it whatever amount of time you want, but that is how I am doing it now. And so, of course, all the geckos will be unsexed. Everyone knows that, but again, for the contract, you're going into every detail possible. All right, you don't want to leave anything out, just so that you know if anything comes up that you are good. Let me see. Okay, let me just go here real quick while it's not. So then you go into the quarantine period. Quarantine is for 4 week period. Give me 1 second. There we go. So you have a quarantine period of 4 weeks, like I was saying, and again, pictures and weight will be taken every bi-weekly, whatever you need to do, whatever you're comfortable with, put it in the contract. So here, getting into the actual breeding of the geckos. So here it says, I promise to uphold the agreement to supervise all breeding sessions between the male and female geckos. The person that has the geckos promises to video or photograph all breeding sessions just to make sure there's no injury and to confirm that there is a lock between those geckos. Again, I've gone over how to breed crested geckos as well, so if you want to see how I do that, go back and look in the videos or in the podcast, and you'll see which one and how I breed crested geckos. So, if any serious injuries occur to either animal due to breeding only, dislocated hip, broken leg, both any injuries really that would require going to the vet is what I'm pretty much talking about. both parties are responsible for 50% vet fees because, again, breeding crested geckos is unpredictable. You don't know. Of course, if you've bred that crested gecko before, you know a little bit more their temperament and everything. But again, anything could happen. It depends on their mood of the day. This is because both animals for this contract, both animals were unproven. Um, if it gets to the point where the male was proven before I sent the female, then it changes, and I'll go over that here in a couple minutes. See, just right here. If the male is proven and he's not very hostile or is not injured the other female that he was with, the owner of the female would pay all of the vet fees, just because more than likely it would be the female injuring the male. If anything, if the male's already proven and doesn't have any history of being violent. Where'd you go? Why did you do that? Okay. Okay, so here I said if the female injures the male, the owner of the female pays for all of the vet fees. Again, you can tweak this as you need, but this is how I've done my collaborations, and I've had successful collaborations in doing so. So here I go into the care and vet expenses. The person holding the geckos will provide sufficient care, housing, and feeding as required of the species. So again, you're treating it just like every other gecko that you have in your collection. Um, Personally, I mean, you don't want to show like favoritism, but like ideally you would treat it better since it's someone else's, right? And you want to take good care of it, right? So you talk to them, discuss what kind of food, what kind of schedule they're on. And so for here, I only feed growth and breeding formula and crickets once a week. Again, for the babies, they're not gonna. I usually start feeding crickets around 2 to 3 months old, just so they're not picky when they get to. They don't just get dependent on crickets and only want that, so where they do eat the Pangea, whatever kind you're feeding them. I want to get them set on that. So, like I said, get their schedule, abide by that. And if the male is injured, so I'm just going to say if we're going on out, the male, I had the male and the female was sent to me. Or sorry, I had the female. And yeah, I had the female in this situation. So if the male is injured, I promise to take it to the vet immediately, of course, because we don't want the gecko being injured. You don't want them to prolong the injury to where it could get worse. And this is besides the actual breeding. If this is just every day, like somebody gets a respiratory infection, or somehow in the container he's in he broke a leg or damaged his eye or something, whatever, the vet fees fall on the responsibility of the male gecko owner. So again, that's when you want to make sure that you know how your gecko is going to be kept. I'm very transparent in how I keep my geckos. The people that you do collaborations with should be very transparent as well, because you're in it together and you're in it for the common goal, like I said. So transparency is key. Honesty is key. Even if something bad happens to the gecko, tell them immediately. It may be like, oh crap, I messed up or something like that. Not saying you purposely injured the gecko, of course, but taking responsibility and showing accountability for if something were to happen goes a long way, rather than you keeping the gecko, something being wrong with it, like if it had stuck shed and that caused the toe to eventually fall off or whatever, or tail nip from breeding, whatever. Being open about it and then immediately taken to the vet is crucial to ensure that the collaboration goes well. When you take it to, if the gecko is taken to the vet, you always provide an itemized receipt going over everything that was happened to the gecko and everything that was provided to the gecko, so that the owner knows exactly what happened to their gecko and what's being done to treat their gecko to get them back to healthy. So, of course, the owner of the male gecko is responsible to pay fees. You can decide how you want to pay them. That's how we decided to pay right there between Olivia and I. If the male suddenly dies, of course, this hasn't happened, but of course, you have to cover it. If the male suddenly dies, holder of the geckos promises to have an autopsy report done from an exotic vet. Again, covering your bases, making sure that everything is done by the book correctly. Hopefully, this never happens to you, but if it does, it's here in writing what needs to happen. If a natural death occurs, all vet fees fall upon the male gecko's owner. Nothing housing related, so nothing that you personally did. If it was like an existing condition that it had that you couldn't tell, like something internally going on that you had no idea, and then it passes away, that wouldn't be your fault just because you had the gecko in your care and it passed away naturally. So that would go upon the original owner's expense. All right, let's get into that. If a preventable death occurs, all vet fees fall on the person holding the geckos. So, say it falls, hurts its foot, whatever could possibly happen to a gecko getting hurt. If it's preventable, then yes, the person holding the geckos does have to pay for it. If an animal happens to die, of course, like I said, hopefully it never happens. It hasn't happened to me, but you have to cover all your bases so that you're covered, like I said. So, in case of death of an animal, is found to be the borrower's fault, the person who is holding the geckos, they have to agree to replace the animal or provide compensation for the loss. So, whether that's giving the other person one of your other geckos that they want, that's at like the same price range generally. Again, you can talk about the price ranges of what you value your gecko at and what they value their gecko at, so you know going in, okay, if something happens to this, do I have the $500 to replace it if I need to, or do I have a gecko that is worth around $500 to ensure that if anything bad happens, that there's a way to get out of it, or not to get out of it, but to get through the situation as easy as possible, because of course we don't want an animal to die at all. But if it does happen, this is what we're going to do. If the death occurs because of natural illness, the owner of the gecko agrees to pay for all the costs. Like I said, again, preventable injuries up front and preventable death. This includes the animal prolapsing, especially if it's not proven. There's it's not. I think that there's a higher chance of them prolapsing the first time just because the males haven't done it yet, haven't bred yet. So after they're proven, it's far less likely of them prolapsing. So again, in this situation, Steele was a virgin. So if he were to prolapse, that were to go back onto that would go back to the owner of the gecko. So clutch division. How do you divide up your geckos when you get them? Okay, so you bred the geckos successfully. You've shown all of them. You've shown the person that you're in the collaboration with that you bred them successfully. No injuries happen. They're all living perfectly good. And then the geckos laying eggs, and you're going to be incubating them. Again, that's another thing. You're going to be talking about incubation as well. How to make sure you're in agreement on how you incubate geckos. I've gone over that before. For me, I always ensure that I'm incubating at 68 degrees so that my eggs are incubating for 100 to 120 days. Usually it's like 90 to 120 days, but generally when I incubate at 68 degrees, they're hatching between 100 and 120 days. That's just ensuring that the gecko is bigger, healthier, and has better structure. Because the longer they're in there, absorbing the yolk and the vitamins and everything that they need, they're going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and that'll just create bigger, better structure in the gecko. So again, 68 degrees, and they'll hatch out in 90 to 120 days. So again, you're going to be keeping. You can discuss this if you're just really impatient and want the geckos immediately. You can decide that. But for me, again, you're going to be talking about this with the person that you're in the collaboration with. For Olivia and I, typically whoever is keeping the geckos, who is holding the male and female, I will let them choose first, since they're doing the majority of the work in the collaboration, taking care of the geckos, incubating the eggs, feeding all the geckos, everything like that. You can discuss payment for the food and everything. I typically don't, just because I have 40 geckos already. Feeding one more isn't going to put me out that much. I don't really care. They need food. I'm happy to provide it. So, so yeah, the person who holds the geckos, I typically let them pick first of all of the available geckos. Doesn't matter how many there are. Again, all of the pictures, videos, weights are going to be exchanged between the two parties. So the person who is holding the geckos gets the first pick, and then the second pick goes to the person who is not holding the geckos, rotating back and forth until all offspring are claimed. Now, what happens if you have an odd number of geckos? Well, you can do several different things. You could either you could list the gecko jointly. Say if you're going to value that gecko at 5 grams, or when it's at 5 grams, you want to sell it, or you can decide to keep it for a little bit longer and sell it then. But then you would say you're listing it for $200, it sells for $200. You would send $100 back to the other person in the collaboration, and or you could just say, if you picked first, then the person that picks second would get the odd animal out. Yeah, I'm about to say, it depends how you want to do it. I typically won't do the jointly for sale, because usually when you're at the last gecko, or like the last couple geckos that you're choosing, it's not going to be the best gecko out of all of them, right? So typically what I've done is I would be like, okay, if I chose first, I'll let you go ahead and keep it, keep the odd one out. I don't mind to do that. But yeah, let's get into the last little section here of my contract. So again, like I was saying before, this is something you have to look out for, because even when I've been sitting in groups of people before where I thought they were all really good breeders, and some of them I didn't really know all that well. And this wasn't even in the gecko community. This was like in the snake community. And someone was like, yeah, I got this. I'm doing a collaboration, and I got their male. And we had a contract for this female that I had. But I thought they would be really, that their male would be really good with such and such, whatever other animal they had. And so, without them knowing, they bred their male, or the other person's male, to their other females. And that's just not right. You always have to disclose everything you're doing with another person's gecko, because again, it is their gecko, their property. They should know exactly what's going on with their gecko, and that includes breeding. And of course, it's unfair if you're going to breed to multiple other animals, reptiles, and then you keep all of the babies and you keep all of the profits from selling those babies. That's not right. That's not what we're doing the collaboration for. It needs to be even and as fair as possible. So, and then again, here, if you like all the baby, or if you're in love with all the babies that you got, you can, again, here we say you can breed the geckos again, like the next season. I haven't done that yet, typically because I don't want all the same blood from the exact same parents. But people do that. Again, it could be a couple years down the road, whatever. But here's just saying if everything goes well, that you would still be open to doing another collaboration. So then I have both of the geckos sign, or the gecko owners sign and post that, and then of course have the dates on it and everything, so that you have timestamp evidence of everything that's going on with your gecko. Does anyone have any questions about the contract side of it? I'll leave a second. Again, there's so many different ways that you can split up the geckos and do contracts. This is just an example of how I do it and how I've been successful in collaborating and getting beautiful geckos. Oh, let's see. We got 2 people here right now. I'm gonna do a little special for y'all. I have decided that I am fine. I have my first lily white that I'm gonna sell. Okay, so this is the first lily white that I've produced. Well, not the first one, but the first lily whites that I've produced. And since y'all are watching now, I will show y'all him, and y'all will get the first look at the first gecko, the first lily white that I will ever have listed. And I will give y'all a little special deal if y'all are interested. Let me get him real quick. So this is a juvenile male. Last time I weighed him, he was, I think, 18 grams. He's a little bit bigger now, but hold on. Let me get him down here and get the camera for you to see. So this is out of Heisenberg and Galaxy. Look at that. Beautiful. The tricolor, that all that drippiness going down, and then look at that structure as well. Insane dorsal, really nice head, and then that short nose as well is what you're looking for. Can you seeing that well? But so this is, again, he has the blushing trait underneath his head, or underneath his chin as well. One moment. Okay. So yeah, and then here is the other side. So again, right at 18 grams. This is going to be the first one. And since y'all are watching, I'm going to list him at 500 because, again, he still has room to grow and that pattern to spread as well. I mean, look at that. You can't see the orange, but all of this white has orange underneath it. All right? So I'm going to list him at 500. But if you're watching this right now and you want this guy, there you go. You can see the blushing trait right there. Look at that. Look how cool that is. If you're watching this and want him, you will get him for $400. $100 off for watching the podcast. So that's something you're interested in. Again, insane. It has lineage. This one has a brown base. Very, very nice gecko. A lot of drippiness. That's what I love having on my extreme harlequins and my tricolors that I produce. I love having the drippy dorsal all the way down, and then he's packed. It's kind of hard to see. He's packed with pattern. Don't mind my stomach. But yeah, look at that. It's almost all the way, almost connected all the way over here. Let's see if I can move him around. Boop. There we go. Yeah, insane. So yeah, if that's something, if he's one that you're interested in, let me know, okay? And then other exciting news, which will bring me into my next show, which will be 2 weeks, 12, 24, the 30th, I think. Let's see. On my next show, I'm going to be talking about lineage, how to track it, why it's good to have, why breeders need to have it, and because, the 26th, my bad, 26th, not 30th. Let me put this guy away, and the reason why I'm bringing up lineage is because I had this baby hatch a couple days ago from my quad stripe group, okay? Now, for those unfamiliar with what a quad stripe looks like, it has the pinstripes going all the way down the back, and then the two vertical lines on the sides as well. Now, this one, again, from Aphrodite and Ocho. Okay, I no longer have Ocho, but I have Aphrodite, and let's move that out of the way. Let's find this little guy or girl. Again, you can't tell. There it is. Oh, you can't even tell. It's so fired down. It's hard to see. Boop. You can't even tell. Okay. Sorry, it's not gonna be the best quality because it's a little baby and it's fired down. But as you can tell, that's not a quad stripe at all, right? Not a quad stripe. Nothing. It has a couple portholes on the side, and then a very dashed pinstripe. I wouldn't not even say. I mean, very very partial pinstripe there. The reason that is because the grandmother, so Aphrodite's mother, looks exactly like this. Okay? She's a full pinstripe. This one's a partial pinstripe with portholes and that like harlequin pattern underneath. So I'm hoping that that'll spread and becomes a extreme harlequin as it grows. But as of right now, it looks just like the grandmother. That's why it's important when buying geckos and breeding geckos that you know that you have lineage, so that you know all the possibilities that you can get out of what you're pairing. Again, I think it's really cool that the two parents made this and it looks like the grandmother and not like either of the parents. I thought that was super cool. So, like I said, next episode I'm going to be covering lineage and how to track that, how to keep log of it, how I keep log of all of my animals to make sure that you're not inbreeding, because that is a big no-no. You don't want to do that, and to make sure that you know and you can show people where you got your geckos, how you produced your geckos, so you're just more transparent in everything you're doing. Again, to build trust with the community, with everyone that's buying from you, everyone that sees you online, out and about, or at a reptile show, you have to build trust and you have to be transparent with them. Okay? Transparency is the biggest thing that I. Can you even see me? There we go. Dang, I don't even know if y'all see me all that time. But that took the other camera off. But so yeah, transparency is the biggest thing in the crested gecko world to me. Just so keep everyone honest and make sure the geckos are doing well and healthy. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters is the health and well-being of the crested geckos. So that is all I had for tonight. Thank you all for joining me here. I appreciate it. And I will see you on the next episode of Crusty Conversations. All right? Keep it crusty, bestie.